Hello, it's Kim Howerton. Right as it was going live, I was like, I got an itch on my face. It's always the way it goes. I'm here with you coming from my living room, and I have my trusty sippy cup, so it should be great today. Hopefully, the light is all right. We'll see. I had a great day. Did you guys have a good day? I went for a walk, took some food photos for a project I'm working on, and then had tea with my brother, which is really nice. He's my older brother. There's just two of us. And we are super busy and we hardly ever get together. So it was really nice. We were like, let's just put it on the calendar. We like to put it on the calendar weeks in advance. Now, he's mostly the busy one because he has three children and a full time job and a lovely wife and a big dog. So there's a lot going on there. But it was really nice to hang out with him. And we're old. We're like, whoa. Anyway, we had a good chat. Interestingly, he works for in a more recently than me in this world. He now works for a organization that deals with diabetes, primarily type 1 diabetes, but also a little bit type 2. And so we get to talk shop a little bit around ketones and things like that. So it's nice to check in with him. I hope you all had a fabulous day. I hope that you are here with questions. So present them, my friends. Present the cuestiones. Preguntas. Por favor. That is the extent of my Spanish availability at this time. So I'm glad that you're here watching. There's only a few of you so far. Where is everybody? Did Dr. Barry and Nisha Barry run late on their call? Because sometimes that happens and then nobody's available to come talk to me. Come talk to me. What you got? What you want to know about? I am still working on my rebuttal Weight Watchers video. I actually recorded one and then I started to edit it. And I was like, this is boring and very long. So I got some ideas to make it a little snappier and quicker. Because people probably don't want to see. I mean, I find it fascinating, but don't want to see me be like, and then I'm going to add a banana, and then I'm going to add it probably don't need that. I could just be like, banana, and then we're good. All right. Hey, Linda, good to see you. Glad to have you here. What should I talk about, Linda? You got a question or something you want me to talk about? What else is going on? I'm doing a lot of research on products. Okay. Chazelle. Let's do it. I want to talk about keto, perimenopause, and menopause. So perimenopause is the decade before you hit menopause for most people. And menopause is defined as going a full year without having a period. So without having the shedding cycle, right? And perimenopause is the whole lead up. And perimenopause can be very disconcerting because your hormones are up and then they're down and then they're up and then they're down and then they're up and then they're down. And so that can be really crazy making for a lot of your days, right? Because one day it's like being bipolar, right? Like one day you're up and one day you're down and one day you're up. And so like from a hormonal cycling perspective, that can, so symptoms often you're itchy, like your skin itches, you're irritated, you're like mentally and physically. You might have more and less water retention. So you're getting bigger and smaller and your sleep goes to hell. And so like all of these fabulous things start to happen during the perimenopause cycle. So one thing I would like to say is some people think that the time when you start addressing maybe some hormone supplementation isn't until you hit menopause. But I'd like to say that you should talk to your doctor because the perimenopausal period is actually one where potentially some hormone supplementation might be helpful. So that is an active discussion that people should have with their doctor if that could be helpful. Hey, Suzanne, nice to have you here. If you're asking about menopause and perimenopause and weight loss, I will say that, again, the hormones can wreak havoc on our hunger levels, our sleep levels, all sorts of things. And so it can be very challenging, but not impossible to lose weight in that period. It is totally possible to lose weight in menopause and perimenopause. I think some of the things to think about as you enter into menopause, what are the hormones that are going to become dysregulated? Well, I mean, the main hormones we've got going on are estrogen. We've got, wow, I was about to say prednisone. No, progesterone, and we've got testosterone. So those are the three hormones that are cycling around, and as we enter into perimenopause, they go wonky. And they all have different and very important functions in the body. And you need to just keep watch on them. So I would say if you're in that period of time when you're entering into perimenopause, your hormones you're starting to think like, I think menopause is on the horizon, which it might can be for some people, that horizon as early as in their 30s. So something to start to look at. The question just came in, will it delay ketosis? So not really. Like if you're talking about, getting into ketosis. So let's talk a little bit about getting into ketosis then. So let's say you're eating a carby life, right? You're eating a carby diet, lots of carbs, and you're like, I'm going to go keto. So I'm going to try and get into ketosis. So you stop eating the carbs, you start eating it more ketogenically. And let's say that's day 1. Okay. And some people are in ketosis by day 2. The more insulin resistant you are, the longer it could potentially take. So now we've got day 2, some people will be in ketosis. Those people are generally more metabolically healthy. Day 3 to 4 to 5, most people are in ketosis. But some people, diabetic people, especially people who are extremely insulin resistant, it can take up to 2 weeks. So it's not so much about if you're in menopause or premenopause or perimenopause. It's more about how insulin resistant you are, how long it's going to take before you get into ketosis. Nancy says if your thyroid is suboptimal, a nosedive happens when you start changing. Oh, if you're perimenopausal and your thyroid is a little bit wonky, it can go very wonky. Absolutely. Because you have to think about it. All your hormones work together. It's a matrix of hormones. And so when one slips out, sometimes a lot can fall out. So it's great to pay attention to your entire endocrine system, all your hormones together. Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up, Nancy. Waynette says, I have been doing ketovorish for a few months. I'm down 35 pounds and stalled. So the first thing I would say is, you said for a few months and you've lost 35 pounds. So a few months, unless you're like me and you use a few to mean anything up to a year. But if you mean like 3 to 4 months and you've lost 35 pounds, that is amazing. And I would say sometimes our body just takes a break. So if your stall has been less than 6 weeks, I would just keep going, like just ride it out. Now, if you've been nothing's been changing about your weight or your measurements in more than 6 weeks, then I would say, yeah, it's probably time to take a more careful look at your macros. Maybe start tracking a little bit, do it very carefully. Maybe just do it for a week as a check-in. So I usually say like 1 week of really spot on, careful macro tracking is better than 2 weeks of half-ass macro tracking, right? So take the time, do the deep dive, do your data collection so you can analyze what's going on. And then from there, you can maybe make better decisions about what you're eating. So that would absolutely be something that I would recommend if it's been a while. If it's just been a little while, it might just be a pause, and you can still look at your macros, but it might, you might just decide that your body needs to relax every now and again. And sometimes things just coast for a couple of weeks. So B&A Beckner says, how can I raise my internal temperature to keep my weight lost? That is an interesting question. There are some very dangerous and illegal drugs. There is actually, I don't know how to get it, and none of you should try, but it's an interesting story. in World War II, there was some type of chemical they were using. I think it was like in munitions. It was in a factory or something. And they found that all of these people were losing weight in this factory, or a lot of them. And I think, unless I'm confusing with something else, part of it was they were like dipping something in their mouth to like wet something. And so they were even like, they were ingesting some of this chemical. And what they found is a bunch of people also died. So they were losing a ton of weight, but they also died. Not all of them, but a good number of them, because it raised their temperature. So yeah, a higher body temperature does result in a higher metabolism. But higher temperature can also result in death, not just in and of itself, but this drug would raise some people's temperature so much that they would then expire. Because a little bit up in your temperature is good. A lot up in your temperature is not good. It's not good for survival. Strange story. Anyway, but ways. So I think it's really hard to raise your internal temperature, is what I'm going to say. Things that you can do that keep your temperature up a little higher might include exercise, that sort of thing. Interestingly, though, being cold actually burns more calories. So I would not suggest wearing lots of coats and keeping the temperature turned up, because actually that reduces fat loss. So if you're always just a little bit chilly, because somebody in your family is very frugal, it actually burns more energy than being warm. Just so you know, people who go on expeditions to Antarctica need to eat like 10,000 calories because their body is burning so much fuel just to stay alive. So it's interesting where, I think it is called something like that, Silent Runner, something nitro toluene, something like that. Yeah. I don't recommend it. There are some bodybuilders in history who have gotten their hands on some of it. It's a dangerous game to play, though. All right. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Debbie Sue says, I don't know where that leaves me. I have had wonky hormones my whole life, diagnosed with PCOS at 13. I did manage to have a child at 21. I didn't get a menstrual cycle at all until I was 43. Well, that's super interesting. No menstrual cycle at all, but you still got pregnant. Congrats on that. But now you have 43. You're a backwards lady. Yeah, wonky hormones just make life more challenging. But like I said, it doesn't make things impossible. You can still lose weight with PCOS. You can still lose weight in menopause. All of those things are true. When you're in perimenopause and postmenopausal, you do need to double down on anything you can do to retain muscle mass, because estrogen is a fabulous muscle retainer. So as you have less estrogen and you diet postmenopausally, you're actually more likely to lose muscle mass. So that's part of the reason I'm more uncomfortable with postmenopausal women doing a lot of fasting, because it can be very challenging. Dennis says, greetings. Ben Bickman would agree. Temperatures below 64 degrees cause your mitochondria associated with your brown fat to believe you're exercising. Yes, that metabolically active brown fat, primarily found in your shoulders. I don't know why. And I found out something interesting, or it's an interesting opinion. I was listening to, cannot remember any of his name today, Andrew Huberman, who is a PhD out of Stanford, who has a very popular podcast. And he was talking about, you're getting a lot of head. That sounds weird. You're getting a lot of above. Anyway, moving on. Andrew Huberman has a podcast, and he was talking about being cold. Like, a lot of people will take cold showers or cold plunges to try and help their mitochondrial function. And he was mentioning a hormone that I have now forgotten. Anyway, we'll go with this. Um, and he was mentioning that a lot of people work on when they take the cold shower or the cold plunge, they try and like calm themselves to stop shivering and they're like to stop their nervous system from freaking out because it's cold. Um, and he was saying that actually a trigger for that brown fat to be created is shivering. So when you try and calm yourself down, when you try and like center yourself, when you do like deep breathing to stop shivering, you actually reduce the hormone release that helps you create new brown fat. So he was saying, keep shivering, keep the shivering. Don't try to control it. Don't try to stop it. Thought it was interesting. Less pleasant, but interesting. Anyway, B and A Beckner says, "Do I recommend using cayenne pepper or ginger to help your system work well?" Now, is there possible? I mean, I like cayenne. If you like cayenne pepper and you like ginger, sure. But I don't. I don't know that. I don't really. No, I mean, I'm not that kind of hacker. So, I try and do just like intelligent things, but I don't do a lot of like deep biohacking. And so the idea that that can help more than just a pinch, I don't think so. But there are probably some biohackers out there who could talk more about it. But I think if we just want to keep weight off, what we need to do is kind of the tried and true, which is don't overeat, get lots of movement in your life, and eat an appropriate intake of food and the appropriate types of foods on an ongoing basis. And, that should help. And so, ginger is great. Cayenne is great. Like include it in your foods for sure. But I don't think like a daily cayenne ginger drink is something I would ever bother to recommend to people because if it does have some effect, it's going to be very short, right? Like it's going to be just while it's in your system. And so like I don't know if you're going to want to sip on that all day long. But although I will say that cayenne does seem to have some hunger suppression effects. And so, if you love cayenne, I don't because I'm a wimp. Drinking a drink that's like some apple cider vinegar and some cayenne watered down with something, that might work as a bit of an appetite suppressant for some people when you want to go longer between meals without eating. But I don't think that there's a lot we can do in this arena in terms of raising the it has it has sort of it I don't know that it's ever been really shown to have an enormous effect in a human population. So I don't think it's going to hurt you. If you want to do it, I totally support you doing what you want to do. I would tell you if it made me scared. I don't necessarily want to do it because that's a lot of spicy. But if you think that's a good idea, I don't think it's going to hurt you. Silent Render suggested lemon ginger tea. There is some evidence around like green tea potentially helping metabolically. I mean, generally speaking, I think for me, it's really about, okay. So this is something that Peter Attia said, Dr. Peter Attia, and I think it is totally true. If you're thinking about doing any biohacks, but you're not already exercising at least 30 minutes a day, stop doing biohacks and start exercising at least 30 minutes a day, right? Like the benefits you'll get from exercise are enormous, well studied, well understood, and well known. The benefits from taking a supplement or adding something, and if you're already doing 30, do 45 or an hour, right? You're bumping that up. But the benefits we know about from having a good exercise routine. And then what comes after exercise is the next thing biohacks? No, it's meditation. It's, there's like this list of just lifestyle things that we should be engaging in. It's not until like everything is dialed in like perfectly, exercise, meditation, sleep, nutrition, like all that stuff. When all that stuff is like as dialed in as you can get it, then it might be worth looking at nootropics, supplements, those kinds of things that are add-ons to that. Like, but if you have room to improve in the low hanging fruit, put your time and attention there. So, how's your diet? Is it mostly dialed in? Yes or no? Okay. Is your sleep dialed in? Work on that. Are you exercising? Work that. And if you do all those things, I'm going to bet that you won't really need to worry about ginger and turmeric and yada, 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 yada. Because if you're doing all those things, I'm going to bet the weight is going to stay off real easy. I have to give myself a pep talk every day to go to the gym or walk or do something. I never want to do it. I identify as a slug. If I could actually be reclining every hour of the day, I would do it. I am jealous of people that engage in experiments where they get to lay down for the whole thing. But the reality is, like, that is being countered by the fact that I realize I'm a 46-year-old woman whose body is breaking down faster than it probably should be because of the damage that I've put it through over those 46 years. And I have to do a lot more than I want to counteract it. And there are some people in my life who are showing me that as they get into their 80s, if you want to enjoy the 80s, you have to have a really pretty well-functioning body, which may mean hours a day of things that you have to do to keep your body running well. And that seems unfair for sure. But like, what's the alternative? It's not good. Okay. Wen says menopause, eating window 16-8. How do you feel about that? Totally fine. Totally fine about that. I think intermittent fasting, or what might be better described as time restricted eating, is totally safe for everybody but babies. They need to eat more than 16-8, and probably small children. But if you're an adult from 18, from, I would say, a couple of years post puberty to death, I think time restricted feeding is fine. What we're worried about in terms of eating is just making sure your body's getting enough protein to do what it needs to do, and enough energy to not down regulate your metabolism so much that you're now living on almost no calories, because your body will do that for you. And that's not something you want your body to do. Hey, Terry says, click the like button, everybody. Oh yeah, like button, and click the like button and the subscribe and do all those things. You could even give me stars on Facebook, or like there are things you can do on you. I am such a bad salesperson. You can send me little gifts on YouTube if you think this content is worth a little monetary gift. Anyway, or original magic beans, is 30 minutes exercise a day good enough? Can I divide it into 10-minute intervals? I do an online exercise video. Thanks. Fabulous question. If you're currently doing 0 minutes of exercise, 30 minutes is lots of exercise. So what have they found? They found that if you take the whole population of people who are alive and you put them on a continuum, 0 exercise to lots of exercise, then and how does that affect their risk of dying? If you go from 0 to 15 minutes a day, you improve your chances of surviving like 25%. It's like an enormous jump in terms of being less likely to have a heart attack like this year, right? Or within the next few years. Like it's just this huge amount of risk reduction to go from sedentary to just 15 minutes a day. And at 30 minutes a day, it gets even better. And it just keeps getting better. But how much better it's getting is getting smaller the more you're doing. That makes sense. So while it is true that the more exercise someone does, the better they have a chance of long-term survival, just doing something is better than doing nothing. The worst thing that can happen is to do nothing because you can't do everything, right? So, like they've found that in terms of resistance training, just even 2 full body sessions a week are if you're a newbie, are plenty to do what you need to do to get huge changes in your strength and muscle mass. The mistake a lot of people do, I think, is they think, well, if I can't go to the gym 5 times a week, it isn't even worth going at all. That is the opposite of true. If you can only go 1 time a week, it's worth doing. So going from 0 to anything is super. And so I would say if 30 minutes a day is all you can do right now, then yeah, that's enough. If you but what's going to happen is you got to push yourself. So those are kind of 30 hard minutes, because if they're super easy, you can choose. This is going to sound, I was going to say you choose long or hard. You can choose more time or more intensity, right? So if you can only choose a short time, you got to choose a little more intensity. I'm not saying like it has to be impossibly hard, but just push yourself a little more. Don't injure yourself or push yourself beyond your cardiovascular capabilities. But that makes sense, right? You can do an hour a little more moderate, or you can do a half an hour a little more intensely, right? So yeah, 30 minutes is great. And yes, you can break it up into little bites. A 10-minute walk after each meal has been found to help regulate blood sugar very, very well. So take a 10-minute walk after each meal and you're doing great compared to not, right? So just start. And a 10-minute walk's not that big a deal, right? You're not even going to get very sweaty in 10 minutes unless you live in someplace very hot. Then walk in the mall or something. But yeah, and it's great for your blood sugars. It's great for your digestion. It's just all around good for you to work off that meal immediately. So, or like you said, do an exercise video, do 10 minutes of an exercise video 3 times a day. I think that's a fabulous idea. Hey, Sammy, crazy keto gal. Glad my SIRI is acting up and keeps popping up on the screen. Anyway, yeah. So today, like I've started walking to the grocery store. Not if I have to get a lot of groceries, but if I'm like, oh shoot, I meant to get 1 or 2 more things, I walk to the grocery store. It is about 7,500 steps to the grocery store and back for me. So that's it's a fair amount of walking, but I'll just go and do that. It's half and half. I'll get there. There's a Starbucks right next door. So I'll get there. I'll get my groceries. I wear a backpack, so I have to carry the groceries home. And then I'll grab a coffee, sit for like 10 minutes, and then walk home. And that is some fabulous exercise. And so, find ways to get a little bit more into your day. I go to the gym and lift some weights, but it's a very simple routine that I do now. Last year, I was doing a very complex routine, and I was like, I'm not keeping up with a complex routine. So I made a simpler routine where I hit all the body parts, and I am like, that is good enough for right now. So anyway, I just want to be a voice in the world to tell people like it's never too late. It is never too late to work your body so that you can have a healthier later years. You guys know Get Fit with Joan. She's not keto, but she's a very fit 70-something-year-old who didn't get fit until her 70-somethings. And so it is totally possible to start later. I think just like anything else, right? If you ate poorly your whole life, getting your metabolic system in order is going to be a little more work than if you started well. If you started working out when you were younger, you're going to have more muscle mass. It's going to be easier to stay fit as you're older. But just like investing, you can't go backwards in time. You can only start from today. And what's that advice about investing, right? When's the best time to get into the stock market? 10 years ago or today. So same thing about exercise. Get into it now. Silent Runner, mentions calf raises. Yes, you can be sitting and then you do little calf raises. So you're sitting and you're raising your heel in the air and you want to feel your calf contract and then lower and raise and lower. Just do that while you're sitting. It is a great way to lower blood sugar without even getting up from your desk. Fidgeting as much as possible. So this is another thing. They found people who keep the weight off when they lose weight or helps with more weight loss to be more fidgety. Now the problem is fidgety is unconscious behavior. But are you like me? I used to be a fidgeter when I was a kid. I would bounce my leg constantly when I was sitting and it would annoy my mother she'd be like, stop. But that leg bouncing, it burns some good energy. So if you are somebody that can make yourself move more, even just this is moving, right? Move your legs, put on some music and kind of bounce around. It all helps. So just even more sitting activity can be beneficial. Did I miss something about bungee jumping? I missed something about bungee jumping. What happened? Oh, you just signed up for a bungee jumping class. You are crazy, semi-crazy keto gal. Deb says, you're right, never too late. I keep telling my sisters, I strength train, I walk, I hula hoop. That is amazing, Deb. It is amazing. I'm going to pull this up so I can inspire some of you, if I can find it. The first thing my brother noticed when I pulled out my phone and like a text came up, he was like, wow, you have really big print on your phone. He was jealous. I had to show him how to do it because we're both apparently not very good at vision. Let me find Joan here. And she's, Train with Joan. She's amazing. Well, let's see if you can see this. Can you see that? It's a little glary. But she started working out in her 70s. And her daughter is a trainer, so that helps. I'm jealous of her arms, and they're amazing, and she is amazing, and I love. Look at her back. Can you see that? That's a before and now. That's amazing. So if you need some inspiration, I mean, that looks like she probably had some muscle under that fat before, but she went from a normal 70-something-year-old looking woman to a sexy lady with lots of muscles. I want that too. So, it's never too late. And I want to make sure that people know that. All right, Amy, I put dumbbells near my desk and several times a day I do 10 reps. Great idea. It does not have to all be done at once. Not at all. Squats are great. And so if you're sitting on something, you are ready to squat. So just stand up and almost sit back down, and stand up and almost sit back down. Like you can let your butt touch the surface, but not settle on the surface. And that's a squat. And if you're somebody that's like a little worried about your balance, well, if you fall, you just sit down, right? So squatting over a chair is a really safe activity to do. So like every time you go to sit down or stand up, do like 10 of those. And that's beneficial. Working your legs is very beneficial for people's metabolism. 2Fix MJ said, tried running sprints, but fell and broke 2 fingers. Don't do that. Oh no. Fortunately, they're healed fully, but now asthma is thwarting my efforts. Running sprints are very good exercise, but maybe finding something, I mean, anybody can fall. So it's just bad luck on that, but maybe do it where you're less likely to fall. Because streets are I live in earthquake country, so my streets are all with cracks everywhere. So maybe a track, go to run on the track at a local high school or something, little safer ground maybe. All right. What else would you like me to talk about tonight, people? I'm just going to sit here in silence. No, let's not do that. That is very bad YouTube, Facebookness. All right. So, in a month, I will be in Denver for Low Carb Denver, which is going to be super fun. And while I'm there, I'm going to run some sessions during the lunch break for anybody who wants to be at the conference but feels like they need some help navigating the conference. Because one of the things that I experienced when I first started going to conferences was I felt a little bit like overwhelmed about the information. Like, gosh, a lot of that was going over my head when I first started going to conferences, and I felt a little intimidated because all these people had MDs and PhDs and yada yada yada. And so I got the idea, and I told the Denver people, and they said, "Great idea, let's do it." Little sessions during lunch to talk through places where people feel overwhelmed by the information they're getting and how to navigate the conference, and how to make sense of some of the things. And I'm going to have some special guests come in who are very smart people, who are some of the speakers at the conference, to kind of help with some Q&A and chats. Betsy, I'll see you there. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good to see you again. Susan asked, I live in earthquake country too. Curious, how do you store your water? In a cabinet. We probably could store more water, but we just buy like purified water jugs, just the plastic ones that are easy. And we have a little deep, dark cabinet area that isn't good for much. So we have some shoved in there so that we have some water for that. Jean says, does an anti-inflammatory keto diet make a significant difference with arthritis? I think it can vary. Some people, it makes a huge difference. I certainly think it helps everybody in terms of progression, but in terms of like regression of the symptoms, I think because there can be a variety of reasons that arthritis happens, there's going to be a variety of responses. So because some arthritis is, I don't want to say injury based, but it's like wear and tear. And some arthritis is very much an autoimmune condition. So there can be a lot of different reasons for arthritis. If it's autoimmune in nature, I think it will help a lot in terms of symptoms, experience, onset, all that kind of stuff. I've even heard about people's arthritis essentially going into remission. If it's more of a wear and tear or a joint damage related issue, I think it can be beneficial to be on an anti-inflammatory diet, but I don't know if it's going to have as much powerful impact on reversing some of the pain and damage. So I just want to put it out there that it definitely can help get you on the best footing. But I also want to make sure that with this and with many things, that nobody ever feel guilty or like they're doing something wrong if they still need a pain management strategy that's beyond food, because sometimes that's just the reality. Terry asked, vegetable options. What's my favorite keto veggies? Cucumbers are my favorite keto veggies, probably. I eat a ton of cucumbers and pickles. Olives. Now, you can't eat as many volumes of olives in volume. Wow, that's a tongue twister. But I put them in almost every salad I make. Iceberg lettuce. I love iceberg lettuce. I eat it like chips. I love it. So that's also zucchini. Those are like my go-tos, but we all have different tastes in vegetables. I eat a lot of cauliflower rice because it's easy and I can keep it in the freezer. And it's like a good base for things because I like a good stir fry. So yeah. Oh, and red peppers. I love good red peppers. Like there are some that are depressing, but good red peppers are very exciting to me. And they've got a lot of vitamin C in them. So that's awesome. Where do I start with meditation? Asked Terry. I'm trying to find ways to feel calm. So I have a resource. There's a book by Sam Harris, I think, last name Harris. He has a podcast called 10% Happier. And there's a book called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. It's like a very non-woo-woo meditation approach. And so that's a great book. And the podcast is great. And he has an app, a meditation app, 10% Happier. He used to be a ABC correspondent, and he had a panic attack on air. And he started getting into meditation to deal with some of his emotions. And so that's a great resource. Another great resource is doing guided meditations. So I would say walking meditations. There's a ton of different things that help with meditation out there. But the thing I do is, like, for just a minute, just to start, just a minute, I just sit comfortably for a minute and I close my eyes and I just breathe. And any thoughts that come into my head, I just think, let go, let them, like, think about like they're in a stream and they just go past you. There's nothing wrong with a thought, but it's going past you. It's not getting into your head. It's just going past you. It's not getting into your boat. It's just going past you. So, and I just concentrate on feeling the breath come in and out of my nose. I don't do that with my hand. I'm just demonstrating in case you can't hear me breathing, right? And just breathing for, like, set a timer for a minute. You just start with that, and that's meditation. All right. And then go from there. Amy says, I've been trying to dip into the carnivore path, but there's so many conflicting messages from some of the other YouTubers. Some demonize absolutely any and all fruits and vegetables. Thoughts? All right, let's talk about it. Amber O'Hearn is my favorite carnivore. I mean, I like lots of carnivores, but she is an OG carnivore. She's been carnivore for over a decade. And she is carnivore because it helps her manage her bipolar depression. And she, when she eats vegetables, has a recurrence of her depression symptoms. So she doesn't eat vegetables or fruit because when she does, she notices that she mentally doesn't feel as good. That being said, if you talk to her, she fully supports people eating fruits and vegetables if they don't make them sick. So I like her attitude. I think that to vilify all fruits and vegetables for all people is patently ridiculous. I think that's stupid. Just going to say it. I think to say, I'm going to do an investigation into what works best for me is totally smart. So I think to start with a fully carnivore diet, just meat products, is a great place to start for 30 days. Give yourself a chance to just go fully carnivore. And then you can see, do you feel very different? Do you want to reintroduce some fruits and vegetables? Now, the fruits and vegetables that you might choose to reintroduce first, I actually think fruits are a better idea. I don't necessarily mean sweet fruits, though. So this is what the carnivores talk about, and it does have some merit that there are things in plants that are protective, right? Lectins, phytates, things that make other animals not eat them because plants can't defend themselves. Whereas fruit is designed to be eaten. So it's like, how do plants reproduce? You can take into account. This isn't to say that you shouldn't eat plants that have these things, but you have to see how they affect you. But a fruit is designed to be eaten by animals, and then they eat, including the seeds, and then they poop out the seeds somewhere else. So that's how those plants propagate, right? Whereas rooted plants, right, like lettuce or cabbage or things like that, they can't go anywhere and they don't have any seeds to spread around. By definition, fruits have seeds and vegetables don't, right? I mean, they're all vegetables, but fruits have seeds and other types of plants don't. And so more people deal well with fruits because they have fewer defense mechanisms, whereas plants, as in planted in the ground, have more. So that's not to say that nobody should eat plants, because if you have a healthy metabolism with healthy responses to things and a healthy immune system, those little stressors that these plants provide probably are things that you can survive just fine and don't have any negative repercussions from. Whereas other people, they have a reaction to them. So I would say go carnivore if you want to. Do you have to eat plants? I don't think so. Might there be benefits to eating some plants that agree with you? I kind of think so. So it's very individual. And so I would start with the experiment of going carnivore and seeing how you feel. Hopefully that helps. But the people that are, some people are really negative. And some people try to pretend that everybody's exactly the same. And we're not. We're not all exactly the same. I can tell you I've done carnivore. I've been carnivore in my life. I was carnivore for several months, and it wasn't working for me in terms of how I like to eat. Like, I just wasn't as happy about food, and I want to be happier about food. I love meat. I have a meat-based diet. Meat is a part of almost every meal. But I am happier and I lose weight better when I include some vegetables. So I include them, and I include fruits because I like them. So anyway, you got to see what works for you. All right, let's see. Original Magic Beans says, am I doing damage by going up and down with my A1C from 5.0 to 5.7, then down again? You're doing damage when you go up, but not when you come back down. So I would say if your A1C fluctuates like 5.0 to like 5.3, 5.0, 5. You're fine, because you're fluctuating in a healthy-ish range. But once you get above 5.4, it's going downhill from there. Of course, obviously, a 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, those are nowhere near as damaging as a 5.8, 5.9, 6, right? But there's proof, there's evidence that really once you get above 5.4, you're spending time in a blood sugar range where some damage is happening just from the blood sugar levels you're experiencing. So I would say don't worry about a little fluctuation. That's totally normal, but I would try and fluctuate on the lower end of that scale. Betsy says, cucumber, everything but the bagel bites. That sounds delicious. I love a little, what's really delicious is if you take cream cheese and you mix it with some lemon zest. Love that. Like, you shred some lemon into that, mix that together, spread that on a cucumber. Little dill. Yum. All right. Heather asked, how do I lower my blood pressure? I've been keto for 2 years, lost 60 pounds. Hey, Nurse Cindy, good to see you. Still 150 over 90, now at a normal weight, A1C 5.2, fasting insulin at 3. I will preface this question by saying, I am not a medical provider. I have no medical degree. I'm not a nurse like Nurse Cindy here on the comments and one of my good friends. I'm just a regular person who learns things off the internet. So I will say, make sure you talk to your doctor for sure. But I will also say that I've had several conversations with Dr. Ken Berry about this, that most people, if they're going to see blood pressure improvements when they change their diet, they see it early, right? They see it. I mean, it might continue to improve or it might take time, but it's not like the last 10 pounds, right? There's huge improvements the first 10 pounds in terms of blood pressure and things like that. But if you've gone from obese to just overweight, the incremental improvements will be incrementally smaller, right? And so if you're still experiencing high blood pressure, some people's high blood pressure is not caused by their weight or their eating patterns. The majority of people's blood sugar issues are caused by those things, for sure. But that doesn't mean everybody. There are some people who have a perfect diet they're lean, They're all the like check all the boxes. But they still have high blood pressure because diet and weight are not the only causes of high blood pressure. So I would say work with your doctor to try and find an appropriate medical intervention that helps you manage your blood pressure. Nurse Cindy is saying true. So what I was saying earlier, that no one should feel bad if they make the dietary changes and they still have a physical problem, a medical problem. That just might be the bucket you're in. That's not to say that you can't improve it. And if you're not exercising, maybe you need to exercise. But you might just be one of those people that the cause of your blood pressure issues is something non-lifestyle related. There are things that a doctor will know about that I don't, but I know those things exist. Okay. Terry says, I appreciate what you were saying about carnivore. It served a purpose for me, but even Michaela Peterson says it's good for those who can introduce veggies. Yeah, totally. I don't think, like, it's not a morality issue. I think in diet, we can make it that, like if carnivore is good, then veggies are bad. Or if low carb is good, then no carb is better. Not really. Not necessarily. For some people, yes. For everybody, no. Okay. Nurse Cindy is backing me up here. Keto is awesome, but not a magic wand for sure. Terry says, am I strictly 3 meals a day or do I occasionally have snacks? I still try and just be 3 meals a day. I don't think snacking is a good idea. Why don't I think snacking is a good idea? We'll end with this topic unless something burning comes in on the questions. They have done research on snacking. So there's the sort of insulin issue that we talk about on keto, which is that you need a break between meals to give your insulin a chance to come back down more towards baseline. And that's absolutely true. There are other reasons that you probably don't want to snack. The first of which is they've done research and found that we tend to experience less hunger improvement with snacking. What does that mean? It tends to just be a blip. Like it's something you ate, but it did not significantly impact your hunger levels. It might a little bit, but they found that if you sort of rearrange the calories in a day, so to have bigger meals and less snacking, people lose more weight and they say they are less hungry. So it's just kind of, I think of snacking as wasted calories. Now, are you asking me, have I ever undereaten at a meal, found myself really hungry and wanted a snack, but I was going to eat again? Sure. Like very rarely. It's sort of like, do I ever have a cold and need to take cold medicine? Sure. But I don't have a cold all the time, right? It's not something I plan for. It's not something that I incorporate in part of my life. So have I ever eaten outside of my, or in the last year, have I eaten outside of my 3 meals? Yep. Do I make a habit of it? Nope. Do I plan to do it? Nope. If I'm on vacation, if there are appetizers before a meal, like on a rare occasion, I might indulge in that kind of thing and I don't feel guilty about it. And it's not a big deal. It's not what we do some of the time. It's what we do most of the time. At the holidays, did I have crudité and dip and something in the afternoon at some party? Sure. But that's like, again, it's like, that's a rare occasion. It's not part of my routine. And so I don't plan to snack. I don't intend to snack. And it's not part of my lifestyle to snack. So hopefully that explained it. But like, am I like do I think I'm gonna burst into flames if I have a snack? No, like it's what you do most of the time, not all the time, or not some of the time, or whatever. Yeah, I don't think snacking is a good plan for most people. Yeah, that's where I stand on that. The other thing is like, if you want to like really optimize muscle protein synthesis, you want to make sure you're eating 30 grams or more of protein in a meal, and then there's not an additional benefit from eating more protein for several hours, more like 4 to 5, right? Maybe 3, but 4 to 5, which means 3 meals spread through the day with an appropriate amount of protein is optimizing muscle protein synthesis. Whereas if I had 6 meals of 15 grams of protein, it's not doing it. I'm not getting over the threshold. So for me, there's just so many reasons to eat bigger meals and not snack than to eat smaller meals and snack. So hopefully that answered it. But again, we're all a little bit individual, and never say never. Like, I'm not into suffering. So if there's a day where I'm like, wow, lunch was very not satisfying, and I really want to have an afternoon snack, and I'm going to do that, I do that. But that's like a fix it response. Like, something has gone wrong if I need a snack. And like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not into suffering. I mean, often I can be like, I'm going to be okay. I'll have some coffee or decaf in the afternoon and I'll be fine. But also, like, again, I'm not into torture. So if something's torturing me, I'll deal with it. All righty. I think that takes us to the end of the call. So thank you for joining us. It was lovely to have Nurse Cindy. Next time we'll have to bring her on. Oh, Jean, thank you. You like black. I like black too. This is a shirt that somebody gave me like a decade ago. It's like a one-piece shirt, but it's got like an overlappy thing. And it was too small, but I kept it for some reason. And now it fits, so I like it. All right, guys. That was much more of a story about my shirt than anybody wanted. So you're welcome. All right. Have a great week. And I will see you next Tuesday. Bye, guys.